On this edition of the Watchmen Brief, we talk about a generational leadership shift, not necessarily in the way you're thinking, but very revolutionary nonetheless. CJ Konstantinos steps onto the Watchmen Brief. Stick around. Thanks for joining us for this edition of the Watchmen Brief. CJ Konstantinos and Juliana Orman will join me momentarily. Today's episode is brought to you by Watchmen Action, equipping the church to engage the culture, empowering activists to do what they need to do on the issues that matter to them most. Trainings are starting to get booked now, and we have some really exciting announcements on speakers and tour travel coming soon. Keep up on all things Watchmen Action at our website, watchmenaction.org. That's WatchMen Action.org. The show is also brought to you by Sherlock Market Research. Is it a gold mine or a landmine? You probably want to know when it comes to your business and your revenue. Sherlock can help you out with that with great research, PR, and behavioral marketing. For more information, just go to investinanswers.com. The show is also brought to you by Now Get Prepared. You know what's coming. You know emergencies always happen. What you need to do next is get prepared. Go to nowgetprepared.com and get all the survival and efficiency supplies that you need. It's nowgetprepared.com. Stick around. The Watchmen Brief is straight ahead.
Want to turn your competitors' website traffic into your next customers? Right now, your competitors are spending millions to drive traffic. Our system tracks all of those ad clicks, visits, and buyer journeys, and matches them to real people in our 270 million plus lead database. They spend the money, you get the leads. No guessing, no cold targeting, just access to real in-market prospects actively engaging with your competitors. Want to see how it works? Click the link below or visit getsherlock.com to schedule a time.
And welcome back to another edition of the Watchmen Brief. I'm R.C. Williams.
And I am Juliana Orman.
Juliana, we've had an opportunity, and I'm so excited about this. Over time, we've had an opportunity to meet some incredible people. And we talk a lot on this show and in our publications about the generational leadership shift and how it has very little to do with age, but more about mindset. And some of the stuff that we've been blessed to see is nothing short of amazing. So we had to get our good friend, CJ Konstantinos, onto the Watchmen Brief. Welcome, sir.
Hello. Thank you guys for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, you know, CJ, we've had a chance to talk a lot, and we knew we had to have you on the Watchmen Brief for a longer form interview because what you propose to do with the People's Reserve, and we'll get to the meat of that a little bit later, is revolutionary in the best way possible for the kingdom. Yeah. So for the sake of our audience, there's going to be some explaining in this episode because we want to set the framework for why what you're doing is so important and how many people it's going to help because you're moving at such a rapid clip. So let's start here. You talk about Bitcoin being the most pristine form of capital. Now, as we do the show today, there's been a lot of talk about crypto and Bitcoin, and most people entry level just think that Bitcoin's another crypto, but you have a slightly different view. So CJ, can you explain to us what the crypto universe is, how Bitcoin is different? Like, let's tackle some nuts and bolts.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a great place to start because you get into this journey and you think that it's simple stuff, but it's really complex. It really comes down to, if you're on YouTube, you say it's the algorithm, right? If you're on social media, it's the algorithm. And the algorithm is where all the magic happens. It's how they get the truth suppressed and force out their big narratives, right? So it always comes down to what's going on in the algorithm. And that's what's different about Bitcoin versus crypto. Bitcoin has what we call the proof of work consensus algorithm. And this proof of work is really tied to the natural laws of economics and price discovery. And I'd like to bring it back to gold because I think a lot of people can connect with the idea of gold. And I like to think of gold as a natural money and Bitcoin as an engineered money. Now, what's the difference between natural and engineered? Well, think about it. We have a candle and we went to the light bulb. We had a horse. We went to the horsepower in the engine. We were able to read and write, and now we put it into computer code on a screen. So there's a big difference when you go from the natural to the engineered. This is about being made in the image of the creator, right? We have the ability to create. And when we go from the natural to the engineer, it's a result of that creative spark that we get from Father above. And when we look at money and we look at natural money, we look at gold and we ask, well, what makes gold a good money? What are the characteristics of money? And the characteristics of a money, let me interject here. There's a difference between money and currency. So when most people hear me say money, they're probably thinking dollars, Mexican pesos. They're thinking of all these paper currencies that have really not been taught in the curriculum of growing up, K through 12, and even in secondary education. They don't differentiate. Money is dollars, and dollars are universal, and we don't think about that. But you have to go back to that basic concept to understand what makes Bitcoin different than crypto, because crypto is currency, and that's why they call it cryptocurrency. But Bitcoin is money, and it's in its engineered design that makes it money, and it builds on top of gold. So let me run through this gold example. Why could you use 1 ounce of gold 100 years ago to buy a really nice suit? And then today you can use 1 ounce of gold to buy a really nice suit. So a nice suit back then was 20 bucks. A nice suit today is $3,000, or the price of gold, right? So how did that happen? How did 1 ounce of gold buy a really nice suit 100 years ago and still buy a really nice suit today? What mechanisms are taking place in the background to preserve the purchasing power of the 1 ounce of gold? But in dollar terms, the suit went from 20 to 40 to 60 to 600 to 1,000 to 3,000. How? Why is that happening? Well, the answer to this is in the price discovery economics. And how this works is it's based on cost of production. So see, cryptocurrencies and currencies like fiat currencies like dollar, there is no cost to produce the currency. I wish they had to print them. If they had to print the amount of dollars that they have just typed into the computer ledger, the printers would still be running 24/7, and we would have nowhere near the amount of money in the system that we currently have, because they just type it in on a computer and it expands the supply of the currency exponentially by just typing in buttons. There's no proof of work. There's no cost of production to creating the currency. Gold, on the other hand, there are significant costs. It costs a lot of money to start a gold mining operation. You have to find the gold. You have to see the quality of the gold. You have to have all the land, labor, and materials to pull the gold out of the ground and bring it to the marketplace. And the cost of the producer to pull the gold out of the ground and sell it to the market is what we call the all-in sustaining cost. That's the fancy terminology in the gold market for cost of production. And the way that natural market price discovery works, and this is what makes America America. This is what makes free market capitalism better than any other system that we've ever seen before. It's called the free market price signal. See, in Soviet Russia, they tried to tell you what the price was. They went with price controls. This is why Kamala was met with a lot of resistance when she started talking about price controls in order to fight inflation. There's plenty of historical precedent that shows price controls don't work. Why? Because it eliminates the free market price signal. So how does the free market price signal work? It works through the supply-demand equilibrium. And when you have a certain supply of a good or a service and the demand increases against that supply, it pushes the price up. But something happens when the price goes higher. The higher the price goes above the cost of production, the more profit is generated. And profit is the invisible hand that creates the incentives in the marketplace. So as there's more demand on a limited supply, the price goes up, profitability goes up, and entrepreneurs in the marketplace see that profit opportunity, and they deploy resources to capture that profit. So in the case of gold, when the price goes really high and profitability increases, entrepreneurs mine more gold so that they can sell the gold to the market and lock in the profit. But what happens when they mine more gold? The supply increases. Well, something in Bitcoin, there's only 21 million Bitcoin. There will never be any more Bitcoin. So even if the price goes up relative to the cost to produce a Bitcoin, you can't create any more Bitcoin. It's hard supply cap. It's 21 million, and there'll never be any more than 21 million ever. So that's a really important dynamic that we'll get into a little bit later, but I wanted to insert that there. Now, when the price goes up and creates profit, supply increases. And when supply increases against demand, price starts to come back down. And when price starts to come back down, profitability shrinks and entrepreneurs look other places in the market. They look for that free market price signal that signals to the entrepreneurs how to deploy resources. So in socialist communist economies where they try to use price controls, there is no free market price signal. And what happens is over time, you do not properly allocate your resources. You do not properly allocate your production abilities because you're not listening to a price signal. You're trying to guess what demand is for milk or for eggs. And you can't do that. You have to allow the free market price signal to dictate where you produce and increase supply. So with that being said, I think it's really important that the light bulb kind of goes off and you go, whoa, never really thought of it that way. Didn't realize that when I go to the grocery store, yeah, you know what? It's not like eBay. I don't type my bid in for what I want to pay for that good or service. There's a price tag. But where did the person who's selling that product, where did that price tag come from? Well, the price is always going to be relative to the cost of production. It has to be, because when the price goes below the cost of production, the producer won't make any money, which means that they won't produce or increase supply, which means that as supply comes down against demand, price will go up. And if price never goes up above the cost of production, that is the free market price signal telling you there's no value to the good or service that you're producing into the economy. Stop doing what you're doing because there's no profit potential and redeploy resources to produce a good or service that actually delivers value to the economy. And in the economy, we vote with our dollars. So it's the voting,
that part.
The voting with our dollars that produces the free market price signal on how to deploy resources. And that's what happened to gold. The price, as the government continued to print currency units just to create currency out of thin air with no proof of work and no cost, the more circulating currency units there are in the economy, the less purchasing power each unit has. So what happens is the cost of production goes up because the gold miner who has to pay for land, labor, and materials over time has to keep paying more and more and more. His cost of production continues to go up. So he must ask for a higher and higher price. So gold, the purchasing power of gold has been protected through time because the cost to produce an ounce of gold 100 years ago might have been $15, and he could sell it to the market at 20, and 20 could buy a beautiful suit. But now the cost of production of gold is upward in the 2000s, so he has to ask 3,000 for it. But there's no increase in purchasing power. It's preserving your purchasing power. The saying in finance is you don't buy gold to get rich, you buy gold to stay rich. And it's the free market price discovery process that allows gold to preserve its purchasing power through time as the purchasing power of the currencies are diluted. So the difference between money and currency is that money is a store of value that allows you to secure your purchasing power over time, whereas currency is a phenomenal medium of exchange. You can spend dollars anywhere in the world internationally, but you cannot save dollars because the rate and pace at which prices increase won't allow you to buy more stuff after you save. You'll buy less and less stuff as time goes on, right? If you had $20 100 years ago, you can barely buy a t-shirt today for $20, not a suit, right? So you cannot preserve your purchasing power in currency. You can preserve your purchasing power in money. Now, what makes Bitcoin engineered money versus natural money? The engineering of Bitcoin is that within the algorithm, we have designed it specifically to leverage the natural laws of economics and price discoveries that I just described to you to drive even more value into the network. Well, how do we do that? The first way we do that is with the 21 million limit. By making it so that you cannot increase the supply, the price must go up significantly because you can no longer, the free market price signal can no longer increase supply by making the price go up because you can't create more supply. So the price must go up more rapidly than it typically would, because it's not about creating profit to cost. It's about incentivizing the current holders of Bitcoin to sell. Because when current holders of Bitcoin sell, that is the only way to increase the circulating supply. So that is one of the main reasons that the price of Bitcoin goes up faster than any other commodity in the world, because there's no way to increase the supply. And when demand increases against a fixed supply, the laws of economics tell us a higher price must come to be. So it leverages that natural law in its engineered design. The other thing is, in this proof of work consensus, we built into the protocol what's called the difficulty adjustment. Now, the difficulty adjustment is something I'm going to compare it to gold. Imagine the price of gold goes up, and now these entrepreneurs want to start mining gold so they can lock in profit. But the gold itself actually starts to sense that more people are after it. The gold in the earth can just feel that more people are coming to mine it. And it says, you know what? I'm going to make myself 10 times harder to find. So see, gold can't do that because it doesn't think. There is no algorithm. It just is. Bitcoin is engineered because it can think for itself. It looks at the hash rate. It looks at the amount of computing power contributing to the network to generate and earn those new Bitcoin as we move up to that 21 million limit. And it says, whoa, there's a lot more people looking to earn these Bitcoin right now to speed up this distribution schedule. You know what? I'm going to make myself harder to find. And the difficulty adjustment increases the difficulty to find the new Bitcoin, which increases the cost of production. And when the cost of production goes up, you can imagine if you're a gold miner and gold just all of a sudden you found this beautiful plot of land that has all this gold. And then the next day you take a sensor and half the gold is gone. What? Wait a second. Where'd all the gold go? Oh my goodness. That means the money that I'm spending to pull this gold out of the ground, it now costs me twice as much, right? If you have a 50% reduction in the amount of gold you can get, but you have to spend the same amount of money to get it, your cost of production doubled. That would push the price of gold up significantly because the producer is not going to produce the gold at a loss. They must profit or else they'll go elsewhere. So Bitcoin leverages this natural law of economics to drive value into the network, not just through the 21 million limit, but also through the difficulty adjustment. So it's the proof of work consensus algorithm that makes Bitcoin engineered money, that makes it a step up from the natural form of money that we see in gold. Now, once you come to this realization that Bitcoin is engineered money, to kind of simplify that understanding in term, we'll call it this: savings technology. Because with gold, you could save your purchasing power through time relative to the cost. But with Bitcoin, we now have a savings technology. It's not just a money that allows you to save through time. There's additional components. There's a technology component in the algorithm that pushes more value into your savings. So we have an engineered money that is now a savings technology. And we're in year 16, and we're already seeing this savings technology being integrated into the financial system. So we're at a really exciting time in financial history where things are starting to accelerate. And we believe at People's Reserve, the future of finance is going to be built around Bitcoin and Bitcoin equity as the most pristine form of collateral, even more so than gold, because it's not just a natural money, it's an engineered money.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
CJ, that now becomes a learning module in the Watchmen Action curriculum. Thank you very much for that.
It was perfect though. Like
Yeah.
I could totally follow what you were saying and why it's so important and whatnot. So thank you for that very clear explanation.
Absolutely,
CJ, yeah.
One last thing I'll add with all the cryptocurrencies you see. It's just like the currency it's just like the dollar. These cryptocurrencies, they just type it in on the computer and create them out of thin air. There's no cost of production. So that's the difference between Bitcoin and crypto.
So that's where I was gonna go next, CJ, before we leave this topic. So as we're doing the show, there's been discussion about XRP, Ripple, the US government. Can you help people understand, because you have some very strong opinions on this, and I happen to be in agreement with you, but can you help people understand what's going on there, why it's potentially a bad idea, like what's happening?
Yeah. So with Bitcoin, when we started out in the Genesis block, what happened is there's only going to be 21 million coins, and these coins are going to be released over a time schedule of about 140 years. So we call it a fair launch, and it was fair because no one person or company or entity started with any coins. All of the coins started locked into the protocol itself. So nobody had an advantage. Nobody was able to do something or get something that another person couldn't do or get because of their position in relation to Bitcoin. Bitcoin didn't care who you are or who you were. It didn't matter. It was a fair launch. Everybody started with 0 Bitcoin, and that Bitcoin had to be earned through the proof of work consensus process by the person who wanted to earn the Bitcoin paying the cost to earn it. Now, the difference between Bitcoin and all the cryptocurrencies like XRP, for instance, XRP, they just typed a number on the computer and created 100 billion tokens. And they owned all of them. Every single one of them they owned at the start. There was no fair launch. It was a company who decided to create the currency, just like a government creates a currency. Like the government, they issue a currency, it's theirs, they spend it into the economy, and then it becomes everybody else's. Well, the government has a huge advantage because everybody else is saying, yeah, that's actually worth something. And that's where the idea of trickle down economics comes from. Oh, well, let us print the currency and then we'll spend it in the economy and that wealth will trickle down into you. But that's not true, because what happens is the more and more they print and the more they spend into the economy, the more and more diluted the currency becomes, which is why the cost of the suit went from $20 to $2,000. So the more and more they print and spend, the higher and higher the prices go, because the higher and higher the cost of production for the land, labor, and materials to produce a good or service. So what we see with Ripple and all these other cryptocurrencies is that they were created from the start by a company or by a person, and that company or a person owned 100%, and if not 100%, a majority of the tokens. So it was not a fair launch. And it was a way for the company to sell the tokens into the decentralized internet economy to raise money for itself, And that is the difference. The difference is that we have an engineered money with a fair launch that nobody had an advantage and no one company or person owned, versus cryptocurrency where in every single case, there's somebody who is a leader there. There's somebody who you can go to. There's a company, there's a leader, there's a group of people, there's a foundation, and they own a majority of the tokens, and they continue to sell those tokens into the economy to raise dollars for themselves and for the missions of their company and their foundation. That is what we call a scam coin. So any type of cryptocurrency that says it's competing with Bitcoin is a scam, and you should stay as far away from it as you possibly can. You will not get any value from it. And any value you do get from it will be from speculative demand. It will be in the form of a bubble. You'll see the price go up and come way down and go up and come way down. But you know what the price of that token will do? Maybe it goes up in dollars, but I'll give it for everybody watching. Here's what you do. Look at the prices of things in Bitcoin. Just like you should look at the prices of things in gold, right? If you want to know how much something costs or how much something's worth, compare it to gold, not to dollars, right? Your single family home might have gone from 250,000 to 500,000. And you're like, whoa, this is fantastic. I doubled the value of my home. Yeah, but how much gold can you get for it? How much oil can you get for it? How much Bitcoin can you get for it? Do not measure. Imagine if you were a builder and you had a ruler and you're making measurements to build your property. And every single day, the size of 1 inch changes. Today it's this big, the next day it's this big, the next day it's this big, the next day it's this big, next day it's this big. You could never accomplish anything because you're trying to use a form of measurement that isn't there. It just keeps changing. There's no way to figure it out. That's what happens when you look at things in the prices of dollars and currencies. The prices continuously shift and continuously change because the size of the ruler is changing. The circulating supply of those currencies is going up and going down, depending on the monetary and fiscal policies of the government. But when you use something like gold or oil or Bitcoin, now you can start to see the real value trend of your property, the real value trend of the assets that you own. And unfortunately, although in nominal terms or in currency terms, it looks like the value of things is going up, in real terms, the value of things are going down. And that's the problem that Bitcoin solves. The problem that Bitcoin solves is now you can successfully store your value through time with savings technology rather than trying to save with currency, which only allows you to buy less and less. What's the point of saving? The point of saving is that you can buy more and more, not less and less. And that's the real difference between a cryptocurrency that is issued by a centralized entity versus a decentralized engineered money that we see in Bitcoin.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot. But okay, now I understand, the why behind Bitcoin versus cryptocurrency and why we want to have it completely decentralized. Not one person owns it. Not one person can control it. Not one person can come in and change the ledger on it or change anything on it. It keeps us really truthful in what it is, the transactions that are happening. Can everybody see the transactions or just the two people that was involved in the transaction? So does it keep it private if I'm sending money somewhere?
It does not. It does not keep it private. So the one kind of a downside of the blockchain is the lack of privacy. But I think what's interesting is that at this point in time, especially what we see happening now with a lot of the politicians literally coming out and calling Elon Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency and the current administration's efforts to eliminate fraud and waste and abuse of the money system, they're coming out, or I should say currency system, they're coming out saying, you can't be doing this. This isn't right. Well, the problem with this audit is that who can we trust? It's a private ledger. It's just like Ripple.
Right.
How can we trust when you're just typing in on the computer, when you can just create new tokens, when you can just switch this and say that, oh no, when you sanction people and say you can't spend that money, or you're not allowed to hold it, you're blacklisted, you're not allowed to do that. That doesn't make sense. So one benefit of the public blockchain is that you are able to track and trace all of the transactions that take place between any two wallets. Now, important because it's pseudo anonymity. Right. So unless you use a wallet, then nobody can identify you personally on that wallet. So there are ways and methods that you can set up to maintain your to be anonymous so that you don't give up your privacy. But at the same time, we need to be able to see each and one of these transactions to confirm there's only 21 million Bitcoin. We need to know that there's no paper Bitcoin. Right. When they took gold and they plugged it into the banking system, the reason gold failed was because they created dollar derivatives. They created paper promises. And the amount of paper promises, because there was no way to audit it, far exceeded the amount of gold that we actually had. And when France was starting to call our bluff and they wanted to repatriate their gold from Fort Knox back over to them, all of a sudden Nixon's like, we better go ahead and not let them do that. And on top of that, another problem that was created was fractional reserve banking. Because now when these other countries saw that there was a problem, they could go to the bank. The bank could create inflation because only the government and only the bank can create inflation. They're the only two entities in the world that can create new currency units without anything backing it. And a country would go to a banking partner like the Rothschilds and say, hey, we don't think they have the gold. So you know what we want? I want to borrow $1 billion. Now I'm going to take those dollars and bring them over to the United States and get the $1 billion of gold. Let's see if they have it or not. And it created a speculative attack on the reserves. There was no choice but to remove the redemption of the paper for the gold because there was far more paper promises than there was actual gold. So the lack of to know at any point in time, anybody in the world, we can go to the Bitcoin blockchain explorer right now and confirm exactly where every Bitcoin is, confirm that there are no more than 21 million Bitcoins circulating. And I think the pro of that far outweighs the con of giving up your privacy, because there are still methods to maintain privacy. But as a global settlement layer of money, it's important to be able to completely audit and track where all 21 million Bitcoin are at all times to make sure there are no games being played with paper derivative products that expand the supply of Bitcoin, just like they did the supply of gold, which broke the system.
So that's the reason for everything that you said. That's the reason why you call it truth money, right?
Because it's a ledger that can only maintain truth. There is no fraudulent transaction that can be booked on the Bitcoin blockchain. Never.
Okay.
Absolutely impossible. Someone can fake a charge on your credit card. Someone can defraud the bank. Somebody can extend credit and spend it and not pay it back, but not with Bitcoin. There is no way to spend Bitcoin that you don't have. And the power of that keeps, we always talk about the checks and balances in government, right? There's always checks and balances. The open ledger is the perfect checks and balance on the power of the state. And that the pro of that far outweighs the cons, in my personal opinion.
Wow. Being able to give people this education and break it down, because if you go out there and search for this information, you get 10,000 answers where you're just like, look, it's still not answering my question. It's just a lot of buy my stuff. CJ, you took the time to actually educate people. And I think that's critical. And it actually ties in to people's reserves. So, in full transparency, we're excited because Watchmen Action is going to be one of the pilots for the ministry church bonds. So can you walk us through the logic of people's reserve and then the things that you guys are getting ready to launch to help people with this?
Yes, absolutely. Well, we couldn't be more excited. And you can see right on the screen there, we have we the people right below serve. So it could be read as serve we the people, because, Jesus, the King of Kings, came here and he washed his disciples' feet. The King of Kings made himself a servant. The number one person in heaven is a servant. So from a business mindset, we need to be able to serve others. And we've built with that Bitcoin mindset, with the truth money mindset, which is you have to deliver value. And unfortunately, 99% of financial institutions today exist to extract value, not to deliver value. So through their products and services, they're always looking for a way to extract value from you. The government, through its deficit spending, stealing your purchasing power, is extracting value from you. We want to flip the script upside down and deliver value to you, because when you do that, you can build long-term customer relationships. And that is how you build a truthful business. That is how you build a long-term sustainable business, when you deliver value. And part of the way that we deliver value is by integrating Bitcoin into traditional credit and debt products, so that these credit and debt products can actually deliver value to you and to investors rather than extract value from them. And I think the perfect example is the Bitcoin powered church bond. Now, churches, unfortunately, the only thing that they can depend on right now are donations and tithes. So, Christians who are faithful and tithing the way they should be, and even give beyond that because they want to invest in the kingdom of God, and they know that everything we have in this world is going away. Nothing's coming with you. So if you're looking at what you have in this world and using that as your scorecard, you're playing the wrong game. Because when you die and you go up there and you see the Lord face to face, he's not going to be looking at a scorecard about what you had here on earth. He's got a completely different scorecard. And on that scorecard are souls. On that scorecard are the works that the Holy Spirit can complete through you. So if you're not focused on that game, you're playing the wrong game. And at People's Reserve, we want to make sure that we empower you to be playing the right game. Well, how do we do that? By creating a new product that allows investment in the kingdom of God. Yes, we're going to tithe. Yes, we're going to continue to donate beyond our tithes, because the blessing that you get from that is more than anything you can get on a return on investment. If we know how to give good gifts, how much better gifts does the Father give? We want to give as much as we can. But you know what? There's some money that I can't give. There's some money that the Lord is blessing me with that I need for my family, that I need for my retirement, that I need for the type of planning that I want to plan and for my business. So I have to invest, because if I don't invest, I'm never going to get to a position where I can help other people to come and know the Lord Jesus Christ. So how can we do this? How can we make it so that, yes, I'm tithing to the church. Yes, I'm donating to the nonprofits that I believe are doing the work of the Lord, looking after the orphans and the widows and doing everything the Lord instructed us to do. But why do I have to take a portion of my money that I need for my retirement and my family and my safety net? And why do I have to invest that in companies that put kids in sweatshops? Why do I have to invest that in companies that create missiles and bombs and kill people? Why do I have to invest that into sectors that go against my core beliefs and promote DEI and LGBTQ XYZ 1, 2, 3? Why do I have to support these things to try to get ahead? Because I'm being forced to invest. I can't save my currency, so now I got to invest it. So we solved that problem with Bitcoin. Now you can save. But now with the church bond powered by Bitcoin, you can also invest in the kingdom of God. We want to make the church investable. We want to bring the word of God to the four corners of the earth. And we can do that by allowing people who want to invest in the kingdom of God the ability to use a product that enables that investing. And with the Bitcoin powered church bond, here's a quick example. Let's say a church wants to build an orphanage and they want to raise $1 million to build the orphanage. Okay, well, right now, the only thing they can do is talk about it every week, encourage people to donate beyond just tithing, and to just wait until they build up this pile of capital that they can deploy into building the orphanage. And thankfully, we've had very faithful people do that and do it successfully. But I think we're going to see an acceleration. Right now, thank God, we're seeing the people of the United States wake up. We don't want to be the silent majority anymore. We want to speak up. We want to be loud. We want to be heard. And we want to make sure we do things the right way, especially with our children. And we want to make sure that we invest the right way and not empower all of these companies who paid the politicians to control us. So we can now take our money and invest in this church bond. And the church, let's say the church, they raise the $1 million that they sell in the church bond. What happens is $800,000 goes to the church. $200,000 goes directly into Bitcoin. And now Bitcoin as a savings technology over time with a 10-year compounding annual growth rate of 60%, Bitcoin will grow that value just like gold would grow that value. Bitcoin just grows it faster because of its design, its engineered design. And over time, Bitcoin will make up for the principal plus interest that's owed by the church. So in the meantime, instead of the church issuing a mortgage or some type of other traditional debt product, or just waiting a longer period of time through a donations campaign, they will now be able to get investors who want to build this orphanage to do the work of the Lord. But they're now going to get a return on their investment because the church bond, the church bond is going out at 8%. Well, the best rate you can get from the government is 4.5%. So you're getting almost double the rate that you would get, which creates cash flow. And cash flow is extremely important. We trade our time and energy at our job to create cash flow because it's the cash flow how we pay our bills. Well, now I don't need to invest in the sweatshops and the missiles and bombs. I can invest in the orphanage and create cash flow. And the church saves a ton of money because it's the appreciation of Bitcoin that produces the principal plus interest. So in the meantime, the church doesn't have to make principal plus interest payments like they would on a traditional mortgage. They only make the interest payments. So in this case scenario, I'm just using rough numbers here to give the listeners an idea. Let's say the church would have had to pay maybe $4,000 or $5,000 per month, which included a principal plus interest payment in a traditional mortgage product. In the church bond powered by Bitcoin, the church only pays interest, which means they'll probably pay around $1,500 per month. They will not have to pay the other $4,000 or $3,500 in principal because it's the price appreciation of Bitcoin being held as collateral in the bond that over time produces the return of principal plus any remaining interest. And at a 60% compounding annual growth rate, if the church were to issue a 30-year church bond, they would only be paying interest for maybe 5 or 6 years. And over that 5-year period, the church will have paid maybe $170,000 in interest in order to carry the $800,000 or $1 million debt. But over that 5 years, the price of Bitcoin has now gone up at a 60% compounding annual growth rate. And the Bitcoin is now worth 1.4 million. So as soon as the value of the Bitcoin hits towards equal to principal plus interest, the church sells the Bitcoin, turns it back into dollars, and then turns around to the investors and pays them back principal plus interest. And now, even though the church bond was issued at 8%, that was over 30 years. You now got 8% over 5 years, which makes your yearly average APY closer to around 20%. Remember, you're lending your money to the government at 4.5%. With a church bond, you can lend your money to the church, invest in the kingdom, invest in the works that the Lord has for us, and receive a return on investment in a short amount of time that is upwards of 20%, because you didn't have to wait 30 years to get it. You got it back in 5 years because engineered money performed savings technology, saving the church hundreds of thousands of dollars of costs to carrying the debt and producing hundreds of thousands of dollars of profit for the investors, who most likely will now roll that principal into the next bond issuance for the next project. This tool I couldn't be more excited about, because it makes the church, it makes the expansion of the kingdom of God investable, and it reduces the burden of that investment from the church, puts the burden on back of the savings technology, and then allows the church to accomplish its mission, which is to preach the gospel, to expand the kingdom, and to make sure that our kids are being taught from a young age to be raised up in the way, so that when they get older, they don't depart from it. It's amazing that a financial instrument can bring about these things. And if Lord willing, if it be his will, we will see this grow exponentially in the United States and worldwide, so that churches can get access to investments and liquidity that they never had access to before. And with that purchasing power, they will go and accomplish their calling.
CJ, I so appreciate you. I can't even begin to tell you how much love I have for you, for what you've done, for, stepping up and doing your calling and creating a product that the church can really use to do the things that we're capable of doing. I keep saying, when Jesus was walking the planet, the government didn't take care of the people took care of the people. Now you're empowering them to take care of one another, to do the things that we deem important to be done in our communities. We don't need the government to come in and do these things. We, the people, can say, okay, we're going to do this thing over here, this project, who's behind me, right? And get you guys involved. And all of a sudden we can take care of what we need to have done in our community.
Amen. And all praise and glory be to the Lord above, because the wisdom, understanding, and discernment that was needed to create this company and this product did not come from me and could never have come from me. Only through the power of the Holy Spirit and the works that the Lord continues to do in my life in this business is this coming to be. So I appreciate your love, and I love you too, but all glory be to God.
Amen.
So CJ, and on that, it's so amazing. In the last episode of the Watchmen Brief, we had Bevelyn Beatty Williams on. She got a pardon from President Trump. And one of the things we talked about in that episode was revival. And in our relationship, the thing that we agreed on in this generational leadership shift was that for revival to happen, one of the big things that had to happen for the church is it had to get serious about the Father's business. And when you described the Bitcoin church bond to us the first time, I felt that dot finally connect, where if you want people to take you seriously, you must be serious. If you want the Father in it, you've got to be about his business. And the church bond really represents that. Your description of that allows people to now say, this isn't some joke or black hole or the building fund. This is real, tangible, deliverable, and I want to continue to invest, not even for a cash return to me, but to see the church's level of responsibility and forward thinking. I want to keep that money working so we can build 100 orphanages or 1,000 of them, or we can teach millions of people versus just thousands of people. I want people, and people will need to go back and watch this segment. They need to watch the entire episode, but they'll need to go back and watch this segment a couple of times if they're in ministry, if they're elders, whatever the case may be. You've got to understand that in this season, this is what is required. And if we don't empower the CJs of the world to do this work, and we don't encourage them and actually humble ourselves, we're Gen Xers. If we don't humble ourselves to learn and to be curious and then to say, how can I help you? If we hadn't taken the time to understand what CJ was trying to do, we would have missed this entirely. And in this season, we can't do that because the Father is on his schedule and about his business. Now, I'm going to step out of the pulpit. That was my sermon. Have a great day, right? Coffee's to the right. CJ, one of the other things that I wanted to cover with you, so we talked about the church bond. You've also talked about the self-repaying mortgage. Now, I know you have a couple of products for the People's Reserve, but can you spend a minute just walking us through the basics of that?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. And at this point, I want people to know that there's actually been a war on crypto space. So there's been a war on companies like mine looking to build products and services around Bitcoin and around the decentralized internet economy. So for the last 3 years, we have just built in stealth. We've kept our mouth shut. We didn't want to be our own biggest problem and put a target on our back when the powers that be were looking for that target. But like you said, RC, people are waking up right now. And the current administration that the vast majority came out and made it too big to rig and got our guy in there, and the Lord put him in there for us to fix things. One of his main agenda topics is Bitcoin. So isn't it interesting that the Lord puts in, he raises up kings and puts kings down, and the king that he decided to put in is embracing truth money. And now with what Elon and Doge are doing, we're starting to find out a lot of the problems that we were facing were actually created through the broken money system, through turning a money system into a currency system, and then leveraging that currency system against we the people. That taxpayer money was being used to create fake news. That taxpayer money was being used to teach things that regular people wouldn't want to learn, like transgenderism and other mental disorders. There are a lot of taxpayer funds that were being used to destroy this country. So the root cause of this was the corruption of the money system being transformed into a currency system, and then the powers that be, the spirit of Antichrist, leveraging that currency system to attack and control we the people. Now the Lord's man is coming in and saying, well, we're done with that currency system. We need to get back to a money system. And by the way, that money system is underpinned by Bitcoin. Now, that doesn't mean the dollar is worthless. Bitcoin actually strengthens the dollar. And what Trump and talk about with the strategic Bitcoin reserve, and I'm going off here, RC, because I think it's more important than our products and services. What's happening here is more important than what we're offering. Yep. There's a movement taking place right now. The Spirit of God is moving on this country, and real changes are taking place. And the change from currency back to money is probably the most important change, because it's back to truth money, and Jesus is the truth, and anything that there is a derivative of the truth is of the Lord. And with this truth ledger, we can now take away, we always hear about the separation of church and state, and we can go back and forth on that. I'm obviously not a big fan of that. I think we need more prayers in the schools. We need more politicians who serve the Lord and serve we the people versus themselves. But what about the separation of money and state? That's what this is about. We need to separate money and state. And when we bring engineered money, it takes away the power of the state to corrupt the system so that we can make sure it's not being used against us. And this strategic Bitcoin reserve that Trump is talking about and pushing for, I love it, because people in Bitcoin, they're like, create the strategic Bitcoin reserve. And Trump's like, strategic Bitcoin stockpile. You know, the man will not be told what to do, but he's willing to listen and he's willing to learn. And that's more important. That's what makes him a leader. We need leaders are willing to listen and are willing to learn. He's going to implement it in his own style because that's who he is. He's a leader. He's not going to be told what to do, but he'll listen, he'll learn, and he'll accomplish the goal on his own terms. People in the Bitcoin industry donated millions of dollars to his campaign and said, create the Bitcoin strategic reserve. He said, Bitcoin stockpile. People said, oh, we need to pass this bill from Senator Loomis of Wyoming to so that the government starts accumulating Bitcoin. Trump goes, I think I'll just create the American Sovereign Wealth Fund, right? So he's listening, he's learning, but he's doing it his own way. And we're truly seeing a change in the foundations of finance. And through Trump's leadership, it's not just the federal government, it's the state governments. There are now 15 state governments that have put forth strategic Bitcoin reserve legislation, and that is moving forward at a rapid pace. So we are seeing the integration, the financialization, and the monetization of Bitcoin take place at the same time that the Trump administration is weeding out all of the fraud and corruption and abuse that we saw from the currency system. These things are happening at the same time. That's how you know God is in it. Man could not manage this much all at once. So with that being said, because that was more important than what we offer at People's Reserve, there are a few more products and services that we offer to empower we the people. And what we've shared thus far is, and we feel comfortable now, right? Because there's no more war on crypto. There's no more war. We don't have to pay our lawyers to defend us from an attack that might come. So now we can take that cost and put it into innovation. We can put it into creating new products that empower we the people. And some of those products are the self-repaying mortgage for people who have Bitcoin. And if you don't have Bitcoin, we have the home equity Bitcoin line of credit. You can transform your home equity into Bitcoin equity. You know, maybe you have a great interest rate, 2.5%, 3.5%, which is really good compared to today. And you've been paying it for 10, 15 years on your 30-year mortgage. But the value of your house, just like the value of gold, because your house is now a basket of commodities, right? Gold is a single commodity, but a house is concrete, copper, wood, shingles, it's a basket of commodities. And that basket of commodities will protect your purchasing power, just like gold protects your purchasing power over time. But it's not engineered. So it's not the best way to protect your purchasing power. So transform that home equity with a home equity Bitcoin line of credit into Bitcoin equity. So you can pull out that trapped equity in your house. Maybe you bought your house, it's worth 250. Now it's worth 500, but the bank wants you to borrow against your house and pay them a liability. And you don't really get it. You have to reinvest that into a business or some kind of cash flow opportunity. There's a lot of risk there. But now you can pull out your home equity and put it into Bitcoin and let Bitcoin compound its growth the way it was engineered and designed to do as a savings technology. This is going to get you ahead. This is going to give you more purchasing power to turn around and make an investment in the local church bond. So these are the types of products that we're building. And if you don't have any Bitcoin at all, we have the Bitcoin powered mortgage. Maybe you don't have a Bitcoin or a house. Well, get a Bitcoin powered mortgage. You want to buy a house that's worth 500,000? You come to us, we will lend to you 650,000. So you can buy the $500,000 house, but you also will be buying $150,000 worth of Bitcoin, which will then become part of the contract being held as collateral so that it grows along with you. So we have these mortgage and real estate products, no matter where you are in your journey of discovering the differences between currency and money. And if you've been a responsible saver for a very long time, then you can use the self-repaying mortgage, which is going to get you access to interest rates that nobody else in the marketplace can offer. And you say, well, how can you offer those low interest rates? Well, because when Bitcoin becomes a collateral component to the contract, it reduces the risk of the lender. Right now, when a bank writes a mortgage to somebody, the bank doesn't even hold the mortgage on their book. They package the mortgage together with a whole bunch of other mortgages and they sell it to the market. They sell it to the pension plans. They sell it off to, I'm sorry, it's true, but they sell it off to the suckers because there's so much risk in the debt, because not only is the debt being paid at a interest rate that is lower than the rise in prices. So you're not gaining any purchasing power by owning the debt at all. But at the same time, the default risk and the foreclosure risk in the product, sometimes it could take 18 months, up to 18 months to foreclose on a property. So God forbid somebody gets into a situation where they have to default on their mortgage, they lost their job or the business failed or whatever the reason is. The bank doesn't want to hold that on their book because it could take 18 months to foreclose on that property. And that includes legal fees, court costs, and a whole bunch of other hidden costs. And they end up losing money on writing the loan. Even though they can create the money out of thin air, they still lose money on writing the loan. So they package it together and sell it to the police and firefighter and EMT and teacher pensions, who the people who are managing those, don't really care because they don't get paid on whether or not the product is successful or not. They get paid a commission, just like the bank. The bank gets paid a commission. It's all about extracting value from you. People's Reserve feels that if you took a self-repaying mortgage or a home equity Bitcoin line of credit or a Bitcoin powered mortgage and you package that together and then you sell that to the pensions, well, you know what? Your teachers aren't going to feel like babysitters anymore because their retirement is going to pay for what they need to do. And the police, they're not going to be afraid to uphold the law and fight crime, because why am I going to go risk my life when I don't even have an opportunity for a good retirement? You know what? I'll clock in and clock out. And if I see that person doing something over there, unless someone calls about it, I'm not interested. So if you want a safer society, pay the police to enforce the law. If you want smarter children and education results that go up instead of down, don't pay your teachers like they're babysitters. So the foundations of finance are what formulate the incentives within our society. And when the incentive system is broken, society itself breaks down. So our products are more than just generating cash flow and enabling we the people. It's about creating a stronger financial foundation that a good, strong, healthy economy and society can be built on top of, where we see Christian ideology coming forth because it's not being suppressed by the lack of incentive for people who are in the economy doing important jobs. It's all connected. It really is. It truly is. And the foundations of finance are now shifting. I have never been as excited as I am right now. Ever since I was growing up, I never really had too much hope. But with the incoming administration and seeing what the Lord is doing and seeing how he's raising people up, now for the first time, I have hope that we are going to escape the slavery of this currency system and transform and shift back into a money system that empowers we the people, that leads to a much better standard of living and quality of life for everybody.
Wow.
CJ, this has been a lot, and in the best way possible.
It's fantastic.
Yes, as we land the plane here smoothly, I might add. How can people find you? How can they help you? What do they need to know about what's going on with you and People's Reserve?
Yeah, so the best place to find me is going to be on X, what was formerly Twitter. You can find me right on my name on the screen there, at CJ Konstantinos. You can also follow at People's Reserve. And People's Reserve, we plan to go live by the end of the second quarter of this year. And we have some really exciting things that we're going to be announcing, and some really exciting opportunities as well for those who are interested in what we're doing here at People's Reserve. So I would say just pay close attention, and you'll see how People's Reserve is going to make a revival in the currency space and in the money space. We're going to combine money and currency together so that we can utilize both as a tool. Money is like the hammer, currency is like the nail, and we can strengthen the dollar and build something amazing when we use money and currency together. And that's People's Reserve mission, to build a stronger foundation to empower we the people.
Love it.
Yep.
CJ, thank you so much for being with us. For CJ Konstantinos and Juliana Ormond, I'm RC Williams. Thank you for joining us for this edition of the Watchmen Brief. We'll see you soon.